OBS decided to cut me off, so it's kind of weird. First thing, we're swapping out the hashtags or whatever we had before for \U2588. This is a Unicode character which I found which represents half of a square. So two of them make a whole square, and if we start our game with that, we should get a beautiful, look at that. It's actually kind of a perfect square. So this is going to be perfect for our game rendering. It's going to look very nice. I also made my the terminal a little bit transparent. It just looks cool, okay? Don't worry about it. So let's go ahead and continue from last time. Okay, so we talked about classes, and I used the example of a apple, and I said, if you have the idea or the concept of an apple, that is a class, and the physical apple itself would be an object. We're going to actually get into that, and we're going to get into concepts like inheritance today, which is very, very important, huge part of programming. And we're going to use that to create different types of terrain so that we can actually draw something that's not just a big white square. We're going to have different tiles. It's going to be very exciting. So let's go ahead and get started on that concept-wise. So the first thing we're going to want to do is we're going to want to right-click over on our console game project. For you to be able to see this, I'm probably going to have to do this. There we go. Then we're going to do add new item. We're going to choose a class because we're creating a new class. And we're just going to call it tile. Tile.cs. If you go ahead and hit add, it should give you this, which is just an empty class. Very empty class named tile. If you're using Visual Studio, you're going to have your tabs so you can see program. You can even go ahead and put program on the right and have them both open at the same time if you want to be very fancy. I'm not going to do that because I'm trying not to confuse you guys. But we have class tile. Let's go ahead and make that public so that other things can see it. And let's go ahead and think of the things that we need a tile to contain. Because now that we have the tile class, we can create copies of it that have their own special properties. So let's think of a few things. I feel like there is a better way for me to do this. Okay, we're gonna split things up. I could go ahead and do it the wrong way first and then do it the correct way later, but I feel like that would just be even more confusing than doing it the correct way off the bat. So let's talk about why I'm doing this the way I'm going to do it and explain what I'm doing in the first place. We're going to have a class named tile. That class is going to contain the things that are specific to each tile. So things like the health of the tile. Let's say we have like a tree or something we're trying to destroy. Every single tile is going to have a different health value, and they shouldn't be dependent on each other. However, there's also going to be a tile type. And the point of the tile type class is to define the things about a tile that aren't going to change. Because it's really wasteful for us to have things like the color of a tile and stuff inside of this main tile class, because if every single grass tile is green, we shouldn't be storing a different green variable in each tile. That's very unnecessary. Instead, we can have a tile type, and tile can have a type, which will be the tile type, and then that tile type will basically say the type of tile it'll be and its properties. So for example, the tile type itself can have things like the color, the max health, all of that stuff that would be, for example, in Minecraft, every grass block acts the same. You don't need a copy of the grass block class for every grass block, because honestly, they can all point to the exact same properties. I mean, the grass blocks don't change. They're very static. And static is the word that we've used before to talk about when there's only one of something. And that's why we're actually going to use statics, because there's only going to be one of each of these tile types. There will be multiple tiles, so this isn't going to be static, but I'll show you guys what I'm going to do, and I'll explain it as clearly as I can. Alright, so let's go ahead and think about tile types and what they should contain. So public, class, tile type. You're going to notice that I didn't make the actual class static, and that's because I don't want there only to be one big tile type. I want them to be several small tile types that are static. And how we can do this is we can actually have a class contain specific copies of itself. And have those be static. But we'll talk about that in a second. Don't worry. It's a lot simpler than it sounds. So let's think about the things that a tile type should have, right? I think the simplest one's going to be public string name. That is very helpful to have. And then we will... So... we're never actually going to have tile type. No, we will. We're actually going to simplify that a little bit. All right. So if we're gonna do public class tile type, then we'll do public string name. Yep. And we'll do get set. I may change my mind on this later. We'll see. These are called properties. They're pretty cool because you can actually replace get and set with a method, so you can have it do things when you get and set the name. But we don't need to do that right now. Properties start capitalized generally. Fields don't. Then we're gonna have a public. Now we want colors for the tile. That's gonna be, I think it's called console color because it's a color for the console. Yeah. So public console color, and we'll do back color because there's a background color and a foreground color on the console. So we'll add both. Public console color, for color, get set. So this is pretty cool. We have, right now, we've got, I'll bring these up closer together. We've got a name, a background color, and a foreground color, right? That's all very, very simple. So, now we're going to make a constructor. You don't know what a constructor is. Well, what a constructor is it's something that is run when you create an instance of a class. So when I create a tile type, a specific one, because remember, this is just the idea of a tile type. It isn't like a one that actually exists right now. It's just defining what it will be. But the constructor is what runs when you actually make it, right when it's made. And to make a constructor, you just say public, the name of it, and then you put the parentheses like a method, and boom. Now you're going to say, there's no return type. That's weird, and that is true. Unlike a method, which if I did public void tile type, you're going to notice that it actually, first off, it's angry at me. Oh, interesting. Very interesting. It's because it's the same name. It won't even allow you to do it if it's not a constructor, so that's nice. It's looking out for you. But anyways, if you had void or return type, that would be a normal method. But we don't have a return type because we're doing a constructor. A constructor just runs when the class is created, so it doesn't return anything because it's just doing the stuff. You can think of it like initializing the class, right? But we can actually take arguments in. So we can take in a string name, a console color, back color, and a console color forecolor. If we go ahead and do this, it makes it so that when we create a tile type, we have to pass these things in. And I can actually show you guys. If I do new tile type here, so let's just do tile type equals new tile type. You'll notice it's yelling at me because there's no argument given that corresponds to these three things it wants it. And if I were to remove these, it would be fine with it. But we want when people to create a tile type for them to give the name, the background color, and the foreground color. Because then what we can do is we can do this.name. The this isn't necessary, I just find it a little bit easier to like do in your mind, especially if you're using very similar names. You'll notice because these parameters are being sent in, I'm using camel casing, which means first letter of lowercase, and then you capitalize first letter of each word since then. That is standard. But this.name equals name, this.back color equals the back color we got sent in, this.forecolor equals the forecolor we got sent in. Let's talk about this. Oh, I went off the screen a little bit. I apologize. Let me go ahead and pull this up for you guys. Like I said before, we have three things. We have string name, console color, back color, console color, forecolor. I'll even add a thing here so that it wraps around a little bit. You can add space or lines wherever you want. It's not going to affect anything. You could even like do this if you want it to be really specific. I'm gonna try to just squeeze things in so that you guys can see it even when I switch. But let's go ahead and go to this code split and explain exactly what just happened because it may seem very confusing. But let's go ahead and draw it out. So we have a class we just defined called tile type, right? Here is the class. We have a name inside of it. We have the back color, which is inside of it, and we have the forecolor, which is inside of it. We have a constructor. I'm just gonna call it constructor. I'll put a box around it because it's special. So when the program runs, or not when the program runs, excuse me, when the class is created. So before we represented the idea with a circle, so we'll do that here. We've got the class tile type. The constructor is expecting three things to go into it, right? Because that's what we defined it as. So we have the name, the back color, and the forecolor, which are all expected to go into that constructor. Those are the parameters, right? Now what the constructor is doing is the constructor is literally just getting those and putting them exactly where they should go. So the constructor is just literally grabbing them and putting them into their corresponding places. So that's not that complicated. The constructor is run when it's created. So for example, if we make a new tile type, and we pass in, say, egg, yellow, black, right? Egg, yellow, black, then we would get a tile type. That's not how you spell tile. We'd get a new tile type, and it would have name equals egg. We'll just say foreground color equals yellow. Oh, other way around. Background color is first. I think you guys get the point at this point, though. It's setting the properties for us. The main idea is the constructor is ran when the class is created. I also just realized that we're missing something. It's nice to know the colors it should be, but we should also say what it should be. So let's go ahead and add one more thing here, and we're just gonna say public string. What am I gonna call this? This is what it's actually like. If we wanted it to be a hashtag, we'd put a hashtag in here. If we wanted the square, we'd do the 2 ASCII codes. We'll just call it render string because it's the string that's rendering. That's kind of an awful name, but whatever. At least it makes sense. So we'll go ahead and just add that somewhere. For the sake of simplicity, we'll add it onto the end. Folder string, render string. Great. Same thing down here. We're just gonna do this dot render string equals render string. Just added one more thing. All right, now we legitimately have everything we need. We can now define a tile type, and we can create instances of tile type that have specific properties. That's cool. That's really cool. iPad be flipping around. So let's go ahead and do that. It's actually not that hard, and it's pretty exciting. So we are going to make another class. This class is going to be special. It's going to hold all of the different tile types. So we've defined what a tile type is, but we want to go ahead and make a few of them that are created when the game runs so that they can then be used. If we don't define any tile types, it doesn't matter if we try to put them into the map because they won't exist. That would be sad. So let's go ahead and make another class. And you're actually probably wondering, why are you putting multiple classes inside of one file? I'm doing this because they're very short, and I'm not planning on this growing too much in scope. Generally, I would create multiple files. In C#, you can have multiple classes inside of one file. You can even have classes and structs and enums inside of classes. I'm pretty sure... could be wrong. This isn't something I'd ever really do, but yeah, that is legitimate. And then you could just access tile.egg. I mean, don't do that. There's very few reasons that you'd want to do that, but you could. It's not like Java. Java's very strict about where you put your classes. But right here, for the sake of things, all this is related to tile, so putting these other tile-related classes in the tile script, I don't feel too bad. Okay, so let's go ahead and do public static. Yeah, here we go. Public static class tile types. Because we want to be able to access the tile types from anywhere, and there is only one tile types class that has them. And now we can do something fancy. We can say static tile types. This is a static constructor. So you'll notice that it's like this one, public tile type, except instead of saying public, we say static. And we can't send in parameters because tile types is created when the program is run because it's static. There's only one in existence and it's always in existence. So we can't actually ask for parameters, but we don't need any. Now, inside of tile types, we can go ahead and we can create some very awesome, not constant, but read-only fields. So let me explain what that means. So if we do public read-only tile type air, first of all, it needs to be static because it's in a static class. Second of all, this could be a property, but because it's read-only, read-only means you can only assign to it once. It can never change again, which gives it some optimization, and it also means that I'm comfortable making it capitalized even though it's not a property. This is one of those cases where the actual naming conventions, I could be incorrect, but I want to be able to do tile types.air. That feels very good. I don't want it to be like weird spelling or anything. So anyways, we can define now static tile types of every type that we want. Air, grass, wood. We'll just do those three for now. And we can actually go ahead and assign them here when the program creates this static tile types class. So for example, we can do air equals new tile type. Whenever you do new, it means you're creating an instance of something. So air equals new tile type, and you'll notice that it's asking me for the name, which we'll just call it air. It's asking me for the background color, so we can do console color dot and then choose a color. It's air, so I think that like light blue would make sense for the background color. Do they have light blue? Cyan, I guess? Then the foreground color isn't important because it's just going to be empty. But we'll just do console color dot black. And then for the render string, we're going to do 2 spaces, which is an empty square. And boom, we have defined air. And now we can do tile types.air to access this at any time. Similarly, we can do grass equals new tile type, grass, and feel free to define as many as you want because this is your project, and going ahead and doing things that I don't ask for is actually even better than listening to me. Learning is fun, and if you break something, just undo. Maybe grass, we want a little bit of like detail. For now, I'm just gonna use like 2 hashtags for that. We'll get a little bit fancier in the future. Wait, this is the background. What am I doing? The background should be, do we have normal green? We'll do green and dark green. That'll look neat having green on dark green because we can color behind the text and we can color the text. So it actually gives us quite a few options, even in a console environment. Now we can do wood equals new tile type, wood, console color dot, I don't know, brown. Oh, do we not have brown? We may be very limited on our colors here because it's a console. This is a part of me choosing such a simple way to do it. We'll do dark red and black, and we'll do like 2 vertical lines. I don't know. It doesn't really matter how it looks. We're not going for like an award here. So we have defined, and you can add spaces to make them line up if you want to. Sometimes that can look really cool. Sometimes people think it's a little bit tacky. It's up to you. All right, we have defined 3 beautiful and unique types of tiles. This looks complicated, but we've broken it down. We understand. We're just defining that tile types have 4 different things in them: a name, a background color, a foreground color, and a render string. And then we can go ahead and define the constructor, which says we need this, 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 and this if we're going to create one of these. And we're going to set these properties to what we sent in. Now, we're not at the point where we can go ahead and just actually have like varying kinds, but just to show that this is working, let's go ahead and in this loop, instead of doing the writing that, let's do console dot background color equals tile types. Oh, is it not public? Public static class tile types. Console game. Oh, we're gonna have to import it. So if you hover over tile types and hit show potential fixes, it'll do it for you, but you have to do using console_game. And that's because this stuff is in this namespace, which means we need to import this namespace by saying using that namespace, right? That's just imports, very simple. But now we can do console.backgroundColor equals tile types dot, we'll just do grass because that should be fun. That should look interesting. Dot back color, console.foreground color equals tile types dot grass dot forecolor, and console.right tile types dot grass dot render string. So what this will do is it'll set the console's background color to grass's background color, set the console's foreground color to grass's foreground color, and it'll write the render string, so we should just get a big ol' square of grass if things go properly. So let's go ahead and see if we get it. Alright. Play. Wow. Beautiful. That's exactly what I expected to get out of it. I'll move it over here so it's a little bit more clear. We have all these dark green hashtags on light green squares. And we also have... Okay, so the sizing's a little bit off. No, actually, it's not awful. The sizing isn't awful. It's pretty square. And you'll notice that the entire console is green. We can actually fix this by, after each line is complete, we can set the console.background color back to console color.black. So if we do that after each line, we should, yeah, so there we go. That's more of probably what you expected. I never fixed the color of the, oh, interesting. Why is that still going after there? It was correct until I resized the window. Huh. Interesting. I mean, I'm not going to worry too much about that at this moment. There are far bigger issues. But good job, guys. We've gotten quite a bit done. You have now grass, a big square of grass. We've defined some types. We've went ahead. We've done some static things, so there's only one air, there's only one grass, and there's only one wood definition. That'll all be the same. And you've used constructors. You've created some instances of a class. It's a good start. Give yourself a pat on the back, and I'll see you all next time.